Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today is December 18th, and with the end of the year quickly approaching, I figured it was time to go ahead and start getting together some of these end of the year videos. I have several videos planned. I'm going to be doing my stats for the year, my upcoming 2021 TBR and books that I really want to get read next year. I have my most anticipated reads for 2021. So just a bunch of different videos planned for the end of the year, transitioning into the new year. So today's video, I'm going to be talking to you guys about all of the 5-star reads that I had in 2020. So I have 17 books total. I have 10 here that are physical books that I own or ARCs that were sent to me that ended up making it on this list. And then I have 7 books that I don't have physical copies of. I'll put the cover up here in the corner. Those are audiobooks and ebooks that I've read throughout the year. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on this list. And like I said, I'll start with the physical books. So these books are in no particular order. I'm just kind of grabbing them as like the order that I pulled them out from my book shelves. This is by no means like in order of favorite or ranking or anything. These are just kind of random, but these are books that I gave 5 stars throughout the year. Okay, so the first book I have is Martin McLean, Middle School Queen. This is an ARC that I received earlier in the year. This is a middle grade book, and it's fairly short. I think it's only 300 and something pages. Not even, it's just shy of 300 pages, so it was a pretty quick read, but I really enjoyed it. This was actually one of my favorite reads of the year. This book is about a middle school kid named Martin, and he is kind of a nerdy kid. He's more shy and reserved. He loves math and like science and kind of like technical things, but he's surrounded by people who are the opposite, who are very much more extroverted and who express themselves through art and music and theater. One thing that I really loved about this book is that the family, Martin's family in this book, are actually Cuban, and I'm Cuban, and there aren't very many books about Cuban families, and so I related to so much of just kind of the personalities in this book and the traditions within the family and just their the way they speak to each other and the love that they have for each other. And so that was one of the things that made this book super relatable. So in this book, Martin, like I said, he's in middle school, and his mom is an artist, and he has always had trouble expressing himself. A lot of the book talks about kind of his anxiety and his shyness and his like shying away from confrontation. And so his uncle comes into town to visit, and his uncle is an actor, is part of the theater, and he ends up taking Martin to a drag show. And it turns out that his uncle is actually runs this drag show, and he participates in it as well. And so Martin had no idea that this, was happening, that his uncle lived kind of this like had like this alter ego, and so Martin ends up joining a competition for middle school kids in a drag show, and it's just the story of kind of how he gets involved and how he falls in love with it, all of the colors and the lights and the makeup and the dresses, and just kind of having this whole like separate personality. And with his this character that he's portraying in the drag show, he's able to kind of show a different side of himself and be the extroverted person that he's not typically. And it's just about how he kind of hides that from his friends at first. And there's just so much in this book. There's the friendship and the representation. One of his best friends is disabled and is in a wheelchair, so it just touches on a little bit of everything, and I really enjoyed it. And especially for a middle grade book, just so many of the different like adult themes that were touched on, I think were great. And so, like I said, I really love this, and I'm looking forward to any other books that this author puts out. Okay, so the next book I have is The Paper Daughters of Chinatown. This was honestly probably one of my top 5 favorite books of the year. This is another ARC that I received from Shadow Mountain Publishing, and it was unsolicited. I didn't know what it was about when I received it, but I do read a lot of historical fiction, and this is what it is. It's a historical fiction, and so this is about all of the women who are like kidnapped or tricked into coming to the U.S. from China, or their parents are tricked into selling their daughters to these people because they think they're sending them off to the United States for a better life. And it ends up being that it's actually human trafficking, and they're being sold into prostitution or like these like slavery rings and gangs and all these things. And so it's, you know, based on true events. On the people within the book are true, you know, people who lived, and so it's kind of half like fiction, half, you know, like true events. And so I'm not sure, you know, how much of it is actually like fictionalized and, you know, made it more dramatic. But this was so good. I really liked it. There's so many just difficult parts to read. So it follows mainly one woman who works in a like a rescue home for Chinese women who are rescued from like crack or opium dens, and from their from like their pimps, and from like these drug houses, and they're sold to husbands who beat them and like abuse them, and so they're rescued from those husbands. And so it follows a group of women who are I don't think they're actually nuns, but they work with the church, and so they work with the police department in San Francisco to coordinate like these raids to go in and like bust into these like opium dens and these brothels to save the women. And so it was super interesting, but it was really sad. There were some hard parts. You know, these women are broken, and their families were tricked, and they don't know if they're ever going to see their family again. And there's a language barrier, and you know, a lot of them end up with disease or pregnant and being forced to have abortions, or forced into marriages. And a lot of them are taken from their families when they're little girls. A lot of them are only 10 or 11, and they're tortured and they're disfigured. And there's just a lot of hard things in this book, but there are also some beautiful moments that just show like the human spirit, and like how strong women are, or how strong like humans are, and how people can overcome such hard, difficult things. And I also really liked that it showed this like positive connection between these women and the police department who went on these raids with them. I think so much of this year has been about, you know, our police in our country, and how a lot of them aren't good and shouldn't be in the positions that they are, and let their racial thoughts, you know, control their actions. But this book kind of showed the opposite, and showed how not all cops are bad, and not all people are bad, and not all people are racist, and you can't label one group bad because of a select few. And so I kind of really liked the juxtaposition of that, and especially this year with all the things that have gone on. So I really like this one. I actually voted for this one for the 2020 like Goodreads Awards. It was nominated, and I ended up voting for it. Fortunately, it didn't win, but yeah, this was definitely one of my favorite books of the year. Okay, so the next book I have is Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. This was the first book I think I read by Riley Sager. I got this through Book of the Month. I had heard so many good things about it, and so I decided to kind of give it a try. I think I read this in September or October. Usually around like between August and October I start like wanting to read like mysteries and thrillers, and so I read this around that time, and I really liked it. I liked the second half of the book, I should say. I did end up giving it 5 stars, but I didn't love the first like 3 or 4 chapters, just because it seemed a little unrealistic. So this book is about a woman who is kind of going through hard times. She doesn't have a lot of money. She is like sleeping on people's couches, and she is in desperate need of money and a job. And so she gets offered this this position to house sit basically for somebody, to be like a temporary tenant in this extravagant apartment in New York City. And this apartment is like known for its, I guess there's a book that was set like in this apartment, and so it's a very famous building. People know it, but it's very like affluent, and it's always rich people who live in this apartment. So she thinks that it's this Great opportunity. She's getting offered to live in this apartment for, I think it's either 3 months or 6 months, and they're going to pay her like an extraordinary amount of money to do it, and all she has to do is live in this apartment. And so she ends up taking it, and I just think, like, right away you could tell that the woman who's offering her this position is a little bit off, and just, it seems too good to be true, and usually we know if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. And so just some of it was hard for me to like suspend my belief, I guess, and just think that, like, part of me knows that she was desperate and needing the money, and you know, when we're desperate we kind of throw caution to the wind and leave logic aside, but at the same time I think it went a little bit too far. But the second half of the book was great. It kept me on the edge of my seat. I didn't know what was going to happen, and kind of the plot twist at the end I didn't see coming at all, and that's why I ended up giving it 5 stars, because the ending just kind of made it for me. So yeah, this was a really good one. I have another Riley Sager book on my list, and I'll show you guys that one here in a few minutes. Okay, so the next book I have is the Illuminae Files. So this is the first book in a series. I think this is a trilogy, I'm pretty sure. I have the second book, I think it's behind me. I'm pretty sure it's behind me. But yeah, I have the second book in the series, I just haven't read it yet. But I really enjoyed Illuminae. I gave it 5 stars, obviously. It reminded me in some aspects of like The 100. I read the first 2 books in the 100 series, but I've watched the whole show on Netflix, and I really enjoyed it, and this kind of reminded me of that. So this is about, it's a dystopian about like our civilization as they're now living like on a space station. Honestly, I read this at the beginning of the year, so I don't remember all the details. I don't remember if everybody's living on the space station or some people live in space and some people live on Earth. I don't remember, but most of it is up on like a space station. And it's the way it's, the biggest thing about this book is just the format. If you can see, it's a lot of it is told through like instant message type thing, or like files. It's almost like a court case, someone like investigating this occurrence that happened, and so there's different files, and there's like a computer, like AI system throughout the book, and so there's parts where it's like that AI system like communicating, and there was like some plot twists that I didn't see coming and things that happened that I didn't see coming, and so they're trying to figure out, the whole book is trying to figure out like what happened in this occurrence, and so the books are the different are the files from this investigation, and so just the way it's formatted was so different, and I hadn't seen anything like it before, and so I think that's what really made it for me. And because a lot of it is kind of like instant message type format, not necessarily like narrative format, it goes by so quick, and it was a really fast read, even though it's pretty big. So this was the first Jay Kristoff book I had read, and I really, really enjoyed it. I do have Gemini, like I said, I just haven't gotten to it, but I definitely plan on getting to it in 2021. So the next book I have, actually the next couple books I have, you'll see have kind of a like recurring theme. But the next book is The Gilded Wolves. I had heard so much about this book for so long, and then I got it through Book of the Month. And even after I got it from Book of the Month, I didn't read it for a few months. Or I might have even gotten it last year. But when I finally picked it up, I don't know what I was waiting for, because it was so good. So one of the thing that I love most about this book is the theme of like found family, and just like the friendships, and the just the dialogue and the banter, and just the character development, and so this centers around a group of friends who put together like this heist, and so they're trying to steal these like artifacts, and there's the magic system within here is really interesting and intriguing, but really the biggest thing that made this for me was the characters, and like I said, the friendships that develop and the romance that develops within the characters, and there's a lot of diversity in here as well, and it was just super interesting. I really enjoyed this one. And the second book, I think, is The Silver Serpents. I think it just recently came out, either just recently came out or it comes out next year, but I'm really excited for it. I actually read this in physical and also listened to the audiobook like at the same time. I went back and forth between the two, so I definitely want to do that again for The Silver Serpents. because I really enjoyed the narration for this, so I definitely want to try that for the next book. Yeah, this was one I really liked. Okay, so the next book I have is Wicked Saints. This is another one that I had for a while and never got around to. And immediately, as soon as I finished it, I immediately borrowed the second book in the trilogy from the library because I didn't want to go out and buy it yet. So I immediately borrowed it, read it, and then requested an ARC of the third book that's coming out. I don't know if I'll get approved for it, but I figured I would give it a try because I really, really enjoyed this one. So this is a Owl Crate edition book that I got, and it's gorgeous. You can't really tell, but it's like matte, and it feels kind of like matte, and it's just beautiful. I really enjoy it, and it's got this like red kind of like foiling, and it just fits the book perfectly. So this is about, again, this has themes of like found family and friendship, and again, that's obviously something that I enjoy. There's like Russian themes in here, and a lot of the names are Russian, and so the magic system in this is super interesting. The main character, she is a cleric who can speak to the gods, and so there's a lot of religious like themes throughout this, which I really found interesting because you don't see that in a lot of books. And so she can speak to the gods, and she has like this like necklace where it's almost like a rosary, and when she touches the bead for the specific god, she can like speak to them, and they communicate with her. And then in the like the opposing country, like enemy country, it's about these two countries that are at war. The other country, their magic system is based on like bloodletting, and like they're blood mages, and so they have to be constantly cutting themselves to let like the blood flow to like channel their magic. And so it's super interesting. So there's this group of friends comes together, and they're from both like sides of like of this division, and from the two different countries. And one of the main male characters ends up being I don't want to give too much away, but ends up being just somebody that like a completely different person than what they perceived him to be. And so he kind of like duped them all and tricked them all. And so I really, really like this one. For me, it was really the magic system that did it for me in this one. And really like I said, the religious themes going through it. But yeah, I read the second book in the series, and then I'm hoping that I'll get the third book. And if I'm not approved for the ARC, then I'll definitely be picking it up. I definitely want to get those two books so that I can have a complete set. But yeah, this was definitely one of my favorites of this year. Okay, so the next book I have is The Host. So this one is pretty old. I don't know exactly what year it came out in, but it's definitely not a newer book. And I had been hearing about it for years, and I found it at Goodwill earlier in the year for like $1. And so I picked it up, and as you see, I tabbed it all up. I actually did this as a buddy read with his channel name is Connor's Library or Connor's Book Corner. It's Connor's Book Corner, maybe. I'll link him below. But we did a buddy read together, and we both really, really liked it. We really liked the main character. But there was one character in here that we both like absolutely hated and despised, and so the whole time we would like message each other back and forth like with like the barfing emoji because we just couldn't stand him. But so this book is about a girl who is so she's a host, so a like alien like subconscious is like injected into her body, so she's just like the housing for this alien, and the alien is the one who like controls everything. And so typically the host, the soul of that person is gone, and so it's just like a shell basically, and the alien is controlling the shell. Well, in this case with Melanie, I think the main character's name was, somehow her subconscious like stays, and it ends up being the alien and her like sharing the same body. So she's not gone, she's still there, and so she knows that there's like something else in her body, and it's like their just like their journey trying to figure out what's going on, and it's like dystopian. And I think for me, the one thing I did rate it a 5 stars because I really did like the characters, most of the characters, and and I thought the writing was good, and I really enjoyed the ending. The ending really got to me. It made me kind of emotional. But I think, and this is written by Stephenie Meyer, and we all know Stephenie Meyer loves a love triangle, and this was no exception. So I think for me, the biggest thing was that the romance part of it, definitely the love triangle part of it, just wasn't necessary. And the book could have done without it. I mean, you can see it's pretty long, and a good portion of this is just the romance and like the back and forth between the two love interests, and kind of Melanie, who's the person, and then I don't remember the name of the alien, but they're kind of warring over, like, fighting for the body because they're both like in love with these two different guys, and so it's almost not even a love triangle. There's almost kind of four of them. And I just didn't think it was necessary to the story. Like, you could have cut out that part out and it still would have been a good book. But other than that, I had no complaints, and so that's why I still gave it 5 stars. Okay, so the next book I have is The Silent Patient. This is another one that I tabbed up. The biggest thing for me was the ending of this book. I read a lot of thrillers, I read a lot of mysteries, and I'm the type of person who loves to, like, the whodunit aspect of it. That's one reason why I love shows like Criminal Minds and like Law and Order, because I love to see, one, figure out who did it and why, and two, just kind of like the psychology behind it. And so this book is about a woman who is accused of killing her husband, and she is put in a like mental institution because since the night her husband died, she hasn't spoken a word. I think it's been like 2 years, 3 years, something like that, and she hasn't, or maybe even longer, but she hasn't spoken a word, not a single word. She didn't defend herself. She didn't say anything to contradict what they were accusing her of. Nothing. She hasn't said a word, period, in however many years it's been. And so it's like the psychologist comes in and is talking to her and trying to figure out like what happened, even though he has to do so through like just like her body language and stuff because she never speaks. And so that part of it, that aspect of it, of having a this woman who like doesn't speak at all, was super interesting to me. But the biggest thing was like the reveal at the end of this. I just didn't expect it at all, so that's what really made it for me. Yeah, this was a really good one. Okay, so the next book I have is kind of similar. Not similar in like the story itself, but similar in the fact that it was like the ending that really made it for me. This is another thriller. This one's kind of like a spooky horror one. It's about this family who moves into a house. I think they inherit the house, or they inherit money and then they buy the house. And it's a husband and wife and their daughter, and they move into the house. And at first, you don't know if it's going to be like an Amityville horror type thing, but the family that lived in the house before, the husband killed their like young daughter and then killed himself, and so people were thinking the house is haunted. And so the whole like recurring theme throughout the story is whether this house is actually haunted or not. And so you go through the story from the perspective of the daughter of the last family who lived in the house, and she has gone through her whole life not knowing what happened, because when she was a kid, her parents bought this house, and then within I think a month or 2 or 3 months, I don't know, it wasn't very long, they end up just packing up in the middle of the night and leaving. And they leave all their possessions, they just pack up and go. And they end up writing, the parents end up, well, not really the parents, the father ends up writing a book about this house. And so it's like a book within a book, and about how the house is haunted and all of these like paranormal like experiences that they had within the house, and just kind of how it plays out. And yeah, like I said, for me again, the last like 2 or 3 chapters, it really made it for me. The whole thing was good. It was spooky. I was like on the edge of my seat and didn't know where it was going to go the whole time, but it was really the end reveal that made it for me. Okay, so the next book I have is The Suicide House, and this is an arc that I received. This was also one of the coolest like arc packages I received. It came with like a little journal and like pen and bookmark and just like a whole like little like kit. and I hadn't received anything like that before, so I really thought that was cool. But I didn't know what this was going into it, and obviously by the name you can assume that it's probably like a mystery or a horror. And it was definitely, I was gonna say it's more mystery, but there is some horror. There are like some like bloody scenes, and so it's about these kids who go to this private school, or this boarding school, and on the grounds of the boarding school there's like an abandoned house where the staff used to live, but the house is now abandoned, and because kids killed themselves. Well, they think they killed themselves in the house, and so it's like the police trying to figure out exactly what happened, like if they were murdered or if they did actually kill themselves. And then it's like a dual timeline, so it shows back when that did happen and this did happen to these kids, and then it pushes forward to where now the kids who did survive it are now committing suicide by letting themselves be hit by trains. They're stepping onto like train tracks and allowing themselves to be hit by trains, and they're all killing themselves the same way, like not far from the school. And so the themes and the plot was super interesting, and I really liked this one. Again, same thing, it kind of just kept you on the edge of your seat the whole way through. You never really know where it was going to go, and that's something that really like entices me. Like I have to know, and so it kept me guessing kind of the whole way through. But yeah, I really like this one. So that is it for my physical books. Now I have the ebooks and audiobooks. I'm gonna, like I said, put the covers up here. I'm gonna grab my phone so I can kind of list them out. Not my phone, but I have a list here. So the first book I have is Together We Caught Fire. That was an arc that I read earlier in the year. It's about this girl who is grieving. I don't remember if it's her father leaving or the death of her father. I think it might be the death of her father. And she's hanging out with like a not so good crowd, and she's getting into trouble, and it's just like about her grief and the way she deals with it, and just her friends, and just the way they kind of all come together, and like the romance that she ends up in, and I just really like this one. And then the next one is Like Nothing Amazing Ever Happened, which kind of has the same themes, but it was a middle grade. So same thing, it's about this family grieving the loss of the father, and it's these two brothers who are kind of having to navigate taking care of their mom, and the older brother is now having to step into the father's role of taking care of his mom and his younger brother, and he has to work to help his mom have enough money to keep their house and all these things. And it was just like this beautiful picture of like grief and just a family coming together after the loss of a loved one, and like their just their growth and their like the way life goes on kind of, and I just, for a middle grade book, it was really just beautifully written, and just a perfect picture of kind of how even when we feel that grief, when we lose someone that's close to us, how we have to keep going on and we can't just kind of stay stagnant. And I just thought it was really eloquent and beautifully written for a middle grade book. Okay, so the next book is Sarah's Key. This book was heartbreaking. I don't want to give it away, but it's about, so it's a historical fiction set during the Holocaust, during World War II, and it's about this family. There's the mom, the dad, and then a sister and her younger brother, and the family ends up being taken away to a concentration camp, and it's just like their experience and what happens with the little brother. And it's really hard to explain because I don't want to give away like the main point. But just what happens to this family is just heartbreaking. And I read a lot of historical fiction, and a lot of historical fiction about the Holocaust, and this is definitely one of the harder ones to read. So the next book I read was Girls on the Verge. So this is about a girl who, I think she's 16 or 17, and she lives in Texas, I believe, and she ends up meeting this boy, and she, typical teenage girl, she thinks she's in love with him. She ends up sleeping with him, and then he, up and disappears, and it turns out that she's pregnant. And so she, in her state, she can't get an abortion without her parents' permission, and so I think she ends up going. I read 2 books about the same kind of theme this year. I read this one, Girls on the Verge, and then Aftercare Instructions. and I don't know if I'm like confusing the two. Girls on the Verge is the one where her friends drive her to another state so that she can get an abortion, and the whole thing is just about how like the government is, you know, controlling these girls and controlling what they do with their bodies. And the biggest thing that I really liked about this one is that the main character's best friend is a Christian, and she's very religious, and she doesn't believe in abortion. And there's a part where she she's mad at her friend because she's gonna have this abortion, but she ends up like putting that aside and putting her own feelings and opinions aside and supporting her best friend, and she actually goes with her to have the abortion. And I just think that is that was like a beautiful picture of just how just because you don't believe in what somebody's doing doesn't mean that you can't support them through it, especially somebody who's your best friend and that, you know, you say that you love and you're going to support them or anything. It just really kind of rang true for me, and I just really identified with it and found it very relatable and like honest and raw, and it was interesting to see. So kind of the two girls who go with this girl on this road trip to get this abortion are two like completely opposite people. The older girl who's driving them is much more like open and like understanding, and she's supportive, and she, it's kind of more like, if this is what you need to do, then this is what you need to do. Whereas the best friend, again, is more religious and doesn't really agree with it and doesn't support it, but in the end ends up putting her own opinions aside and supporting her best friend. So it's interesting to see like the two different like viewpoints, like in the same car, like on the same road trip, and how they both end up supporting her. So I really liked that one. And then, so this year I found several series that I really enjoyed, and one of them was the Winter's, I think it's called the Winter's Curse series. My friend Ray recommended this one to me over the summer, I think. I really liked the second book in the series, The Winter's Crime. I rated the first one 4 stars, I think, and then, like I said, this one 5 stars. So this is about a girl who comes from like an affluent family, and in this time when this race of people like come in to this land and they take it over, and they make the like the native people like their slaves, and how they become slaves in these people's households. And she ends up purchasing this male slave, and it turns out that he's actually like a spy, like plotting to take over her household and help like overthrow the government. And it was really interesting. I really liked the dynamic between the girl and the slave, and like their journey, and they end up falling in love, and so the romance between them. And I don't want to give a lot away, but I really there were 2 series this year that I really enjoyed, that one and the Shadow Me series, which is coming up. But of all the series I've read this year, those are the 2 that I really liked the most. Hey guys, so it is now a few days later, and I was in the process of editing this video when I realized that the entire last clip where I was talking about my last few books, I wasn't recording. I never hit the record button, so I had my whole spiel and I was talking and I didn't record any of it. So, like I said, it's now a few days later. It's actually Christmas Eve. I am working, but I thought that I would go ahead and record this last clip real quick, so that I can get this last part of the video edited and I can get it up to you guys. So I'm sorry that this part of the video is not cohesive and doesn't match the rest of it. But unfortunately, that happens sometimes. So, the last couple of things I want to talk about, one was Eleanor and Park. Again, I'll go ahead and I'll put the cover up here. This book is by Rainbow Rowell. It was the first book I had read by this author, and I really, really enjoyed it. It's about this girl who kind of comes from like the wrong side of the tracks. Kind of her family doesn't have a lot of money. She has a lot of siblings, and as it is, her family doesn't have a lot of money. And then on top of trying to take care of all of these kids, and her stepdad is not a very nice person, and does not treat her or her siblings or even her mom, very nicely. And she meets this boy on the school bus named Park, who is Korean, and the book kind of starts out with them like begrudgingly becoming friends, and slowly it develops into more. And I just really loved everything about this book. I really liked the characters and the character development, and just the romance between them, and I just loved everything about this one. And then the last thing that I want to talk about is the Shatter Me series. There are 2 or 3 books in the series that I gave 5 stars. If you've seen my vlogs, then you will have seen my thoughts on these books. It's probably my favorite series that I've read this year. I'm currently on book 5, although it's technically probably like book 8 or 9 because there are novellas in between most of the books. I've really enjoyed this series. I had seen it like pop up around Bookstagram over the last couple of years, but never really looked into it. And then earlier this summer, I was just like, you know what, I'm going to try it. Why not? And I was immediately hooked and just read like book after book after book, and just haven't been able to put them down. And I really enjoyed just the world and the most of the characters, and it's just different than anything I've read before. And so I'm hoping to continue it, or not hoping to, I'm going to continue reading the series in 2021. I think there's 7 or 8 books in the series, so I think I still have a couple books to go. But yeah, that is it. That is everything on my 5-star reads list for 2020. I am excited for 2021 to start, so that I can kind of restart on my reading goal for the year, and just, you know, for a fresh start. 2020 has been a crazy year, and it hasn't been the best reading year just because of everything going on. So I'm excited to kind of start over. So I hope you guys have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and I will see you guys in my next video.